Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. My name is Isolde Trachtenberg, and I'm really happy that you're here on the Creative Mindset Podcast. I am thrilled to be bringing you an encore of one of my favorite episodes. If you want to build some confidence around the goals that you want to achieve, this is the episode for you. Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. Welcome to the Creative Mindset Podcast. My name is Isolde Trachtenberg, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today. In this show, we explore how to live your exciting, creative, and most fulfilling life. Hello, my name is Isolde Trachtenberg, and I'm really glad that you're taking a little time out of your day to spend some time with me. Today I want to talk about confidence. And what does confidence mean? To me, confidence is all about feeling deserving of being right where you are. Wherever that is, whatever it is you're doing, if you feel like you deserve to be there, like you are entitled, and not in the negative connotation of the word entitled, but entitled to be where you are, that means you have confidence on the inside. And I think that's where it matters the most, right? If we are confident on the inside, then what we project, how we interact with people, what we do, what we say, it all comes from that place of knowing we belong right where we are, knowing we deserve to be there. That can be a real challenge for people. How do you get to that place where you feel like where you are is where you're supposed to be? What do we need to do to make sure that that happens? Well, the question becomes, how do you feel when you're confident? What happens to you? Where are you with it? It's a tough one, isn't it? This is something I'm going to be spending a lot of time on in the next few weeks and months during this show, because I think it's important for us to start getting a feeling about what it means to be confident. How do we feel when we're confident? And perhaps it's best to start with the opposite. What do you feel inside yourself when you're not confident? You might feel scared, you might feel anxious, you might feel undeserving, you might feel sad, or even angry. But that's not even what I'm talking about. What I'm asking you to do is to figure out for yourself, where does confidence or the lack of confidence reside in your body? For me, when I don't feel confident, it's those butterflies, the butterflies in your stomach, the clenching of your gut, if you will. That to me, the lack of confidence or the opposite of confidence. It's a fight or flight response, right? There's a little part of your brain called the amygdala, which regulates that, whether or not you stay and fight or run away to perhaps fight another day. That's from the sort of the really old part of our brains, if you will. It goes back many, many, probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years in our development. And so it governs that notion of, is there danger? What do I do? And to me, when we feel anxious, it's that fight or flight response that's happening. We have to decide what we're going to do about it. So I'm going to invite you for the next little while, as we look at the idea of confidence and presenting yourself, I'm going to invite you to start thinking about those butterflies in your stomach, the clenching of your gut, the fluttering that might be happening. If you feel it when you feel anxious, note it. The next time you feel anxious or unconfident, note what's happening in your belly, because that's one of the best indicators about what's going on with the rest of you. I'm talking about those butterflies in your belly, the fluttering, the clenching of your gut when you go, that feeling, that notion of the butterflies being in your belly, I identified as your amygdala in the brain, sort of setting off a fight or flight response. What should I do? Should I stay and fight, or should I run away to perhaps fight another day? That comes from an old part of our brain where we were living in wild and nature. Not many of us living in cities. Probably there weren't any cities at the time. But what we had to do was assess danger and decide whether or not to stay and fight or to run away. And that part still persists. It's still there, that amygdala, and it's still putting out those fight or flight responses. And when we don't feel confident, when we don't feel like we belong where we are, that fight or flight response becomes a really major part of what's going on. That butterfly in your stomach is your body clenching to run away or to fight. So the question then becomes, what do you do about it? How do you deal with those butterflies in a way that's substantive and in a way that's active and proactive to help you handle the lack of confidence? Well, one of the best things that you can do for yourself is you can breathe. When you feel that clenching, here's a really simple exercise to get you to sort of release that feeling of fight or flight. Interlace your fingers like this, put your hands on your belly, and breathe into your hands 3 deep breaths. Just inhale, imagining that the air is going all the way down into your interlaced fingers on your belly. So inhale with me right now. Let's try it. Why not? Inhale. And then exhale. And you can do that. Inhale through your nose into your interlaced fingers. And then exhale through your mouth. And then one more time. Inhale. And then exhale. That breeze, if you will, that breath coming into and out of your body is a great way to start dealing with those butterflies. Certainly we have those physical responses like the butterflies in our bellies, but then we also have to deal with the stuff that's going on inside our heads that makes us feel like, again, holy crap, everything's going all over the place. So how do we do that? How do we deal with the more intellectual side of that feeling of not being confident? The butterflies are a physical manifestation, right? It's the amygdala firing up the fight or flight response. Do you stay and fight or do you run away? But then there's the mental, oh, it'll never work. Oh, I'm never going to do it. You know, it's kind of like you or Rocky the squirrel, right? But that trick never works. So what we want to do instead, when we start getting those running litanies of thoughts, this is what is wrong, these are the things that are going to get screwed up, nothing is working, I'm never going to make my deadlines, I have too much to do. What do we do with that? How do we deal with it? Well, one of the first things that we need to do, of course, is breathe. When we're dealing with confidence or lack thereof, things often happen to make us feel unconfident. Things get messed up, screwed up, things fall apart, and you have to handle it. You have to go, okay, the dog just walked by and there was a clinking of a chain. I could ignore it and hope that nobody heard it, or I could go, here's the deal. This is where we are. This is what's going on. And you know what? That's one of the best ways to take that feeling of anxiety and tell it to go take a hike or a long leap off a short pier. Because acknowledging the anxiety, acknowledging the thing that's making you feel unconfident is one of the best ways to make things go better. It just is. It makes things go better. As soon as you name the fear, everything improves. Find out what you're afraid of. And in fact, ask yourself. That's one of the best things that you can do. Ask yourself right now, what is it that I'm afraid of? What's the worst that could happen? Name it. And in fact, if you have a journal, write it down. The worst that could happen is I could walk out of the house forgetting to put clothes on. I don't know, whatever it is for you. Ask yourself that question and see what it means to you when you get the answer. Then we start dealing with the answer, because the answer most often is one you can deal with. You can handle it and even make friends with it and invite it out for coffee. You can figure out for yourself, what are the things that you need to do to deal with that? What's the worst that could happen fear? Because anxiety is that. It's that feeling that the worst will happen or the worst is happening. Generally, it isn't objectively, but that fight or flight response doesn't know that. It doesn't think in terms of rational. It thinks in terms of survival. So name your fear today. I'd love to hear from you, by the way. If you have named your fear, if you're struggling with naming your fear, comment, DM down below and let me know, because I think together we can not only name the fear, but make friends with it and conquer it. I want to talk about making friends with it. Once you've named the fear, once you've figured out the very essence of what it is. And by the way, I recognize that it's not something that you're going to do right away. It takes time. It can take a fair amount of time to figure out exactly what it is you're afraid of. And I encourage you to do it. Write about it in your journal if you have one. Get a notebook from the local grocery store or whatever, and start writing about the worst that can happen. Because once you write it down, once you name it, things get a lot better. They just do, because then you have something to work against. Until you figure out what the fear is, it looks like this inky morass that could be the size of a small city or even a large city, and you have no way to how to handle it. You have no way to get a grasp on it. You have no way of figuring out how to encompass it, how to handle it, how to deal with it, because it just seems and looms so large. But the second you name it, all of a sudden you go, oh, because by the way, we're problem-solving creatures. That's what we want to do. We have a problem. We tend to go, okay, what are the solutions? Even if we're not doing it consciously, on the inside, we're trying to deal with it. So as soon as you know what the problem is, some part of you, some internal part of you is going to start trying to figure out how to handle it. And once you start getting into that space, then all things become possible. So let's say you name your fear, and let's say you name it Aloysius or Gertrude. No, I'm kidding, but only a little, because that fear can be tied to something that feels greater than yourself. Generally speaking, fears and worries are trying to deal with something that hasn't happened yet or might happen, but isn't necessarily part of your reality. Now, if you're afraid and you have reason to be afraid, if you're in imminent danger of something horrible, that's a different story. We're talking about the internal processes of fears that may be born of anxiety and may be born of that fight or flight response, but aren't giving you any actual reason to run right now. So, once you've named your fear, you start making friends with it. Give not only the actual characteristic of the fear, but give it a name. It can be Aloysius. Aloysius is fine, or Murgatroyd. Murgatroyd is one of my favorite fear names. So let's say it's Murgatroyd. Make friends with Murgatroyd. Talk to Murgatroyd and go, okay, Murgatroyd, what's up? What are you trying to tell me? Because generally speaking, fears of all sorts are just trying to give you information. They're trying to let you know something you need to know. So, what do we do? How do we handle it? Find out. Find out from Murgatroyd. Ask the question. Grab a journal, grab a fresh page on that journal, and ask yourself the question. Once you've named the fear, I'm afraid that people are going to make fun of me. Okay, that's possible. So let's say that's the fear, and Murgatroyd personifies that fear of being made fun of. I want you to write down, what's the worst that could happen? Ask Murgatroyd, what is the worst that could happen if I get made fun of? And once you've done doing that, here's the next step. What can I do about it? Make it an open-ended question. Don't ask why. Why is a very judgy kind of word. Don't ask yourself why. Just ask what you can do about it. Ask Murgatroyd what information Murgatroyd is trying to give you about this particular fear. Figure that out, and you're well on your way. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear from you. What are your fears? What name did you decide to give your fear? Is it Murgatroyd? Is it Aloysius? Is it Gertrude? Is it Brunhilde? I don't know. Whatever it is that you decide you want to do, drop a line, let me know. I'd love to hear about it, because together we can get those fears to become simple information givers, and that is crucial. I want to talk about confidence from the perspective today of dealing with things that make you unconfident. We went through exercises, things you can do that in the moment help you reduce anxiety. We also talked about making friends with our fear, giving it a name, and asking that fear what information it's trying to give us, because often fears are trying to give us information. I know that's weird, right? But they are. They're trying to give us information that will help us handle it, that will give us something that we need. We need to know why we're afraid, what makes us afraid. That doesn't mean that it can have power over us or that we should give it power over us. It means we can get information from it. We can suck it dry of every little bit of useful knowledge. And once you have that knowledge, let's say you have a fear of public speaking. I'm going to do that. I'm going to say that because, frankly, I'm writing a book on it. The book comes out relatively soon. It's called Speak From Within: How to Engage, Inspire, and Motivate Any Audience. And basically, it's how to become a really confident communicator. And I talk some about, in the book, about being afraid to speak in public. So let's say that's the fear. You're terrified of getting up in front of people and saying anything. And so then the question becomes, again, if you name it, let's say it's Brunhilde, and you ask Brunhilde, "What's up, Brunhilde? What is making me afraid of speaking in public?" In fact, again, remember, no why questions. What is? You're asking for information, you're not asking for justification. Two different things. Once you've done that, let's say Brunhilde tells you that, again, you're afraid that they're going to make fun of you. You're afraid that you're going to trip over your words and you're going to say something totally awkward. Okay. Maybe those are the two things you're afraid of, that you're going to trip over your words and you're going to make a fool of yourself and say something awkward. Maybe that's what you're terrified of. Okay. First of all, sit with the fear. Sit with Brunhilde and have an imaginary cup of coffee and go, "I totally hear you. I understand that makes you afraid." Accept it. You're afraid of it. Once you accept it, then it's kind of like naming it. You've accepted it. Now you can do something about it. So let's say you start by writing some affirmations about it. Get into that headspace. What thing can I do to help the fear of being awkward become more manageable? You can do a really simple affirmation. And affirmations, by the way, are statements that we make to ourselves that allow us to behave as if the thing already exists. So, believing that you belong somewhere or that you deserve to be somewhere is one of the first and best steps of making this happen. So let's say the affirmation becomes, "I deserve to have my say." Okay. Doesn't matter whether or not you feel awkward or that people might make fun of you. You still deserve to have your say. And you could also say, "I embrace being awkward because we all are." You can do that as an affirmation. You can also say, "I speak from the heart and speak my truth." There you go. That's another beautiful affirmation. I speak from my heart and I speak my truth. And even if it comes out all jumbly, that's okay. Jumbly's fine, because there is not a single person on the planet who has not started to say something and had everything go blah, 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 and get all kerfuffled. Everybody has. Every single one of us has. So it's a common issue, and it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It just means that sometimes your brain is working way faster than what your mouth can say. And in fact, not sometimes, all the time. Our brain works at lightning speed. Our mouths can't keep up. So sometimes what you're thinking you want to say and what the actual mechanics are that your mouth makes to say the words are two different things. That's all that's happening when your words get kerfuffled. That's it. And it's okay. And that's the big thing. And that is the best affirmation that you can give yourself. This one goes something like this. It's okay if my words get messed up. That's it. It's okay. And more importantly, I'm okay if my words get messed up. Ta-da! 'Cause you are. No matter what happens, you are. That's the beauty of it. So I'd love to hear from you. if you have made a list of the fears, if you've named them, your Brunhilde, your Gertrude, your Murgatroyd, your Aloysius, your John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, doesn't matter what they are. Let's say you've named them. Come up with an affirmation for each and drop me a line and let me know what they are. I would love to hear about it. And if you have questions about how to affirm, what you could write for yourself if you're having trouble figuring it out, comment below and let me know, and I would be delighted to help you. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and please tell your friends about the community we're building here. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright Isolde Trachtenberg 2018. Today's music was from Kevin MacLeod, Laser Groove, and Ave Marimba, brought to you by Creative Commons License 3.0. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, I send you all of my love.